So this is a bit of a follow-up to the video I just posted earlier today, showing off my block party game using Redstone. I am posting this video along with a world download that will be in the description of both videos. And I'm just doing this to go over two of the main components, namely one, this white cube, which is figuring out where you are on the grid, and the leveling system, which is down there, because my spaghetti redstone is a complete mess to look at, and it's probably just going to be better if I explain these two parts. So just before we get into a little bit of story time, because I've been trying to make this game for about like 6 years now, and I can never figure out how to do it, because I can never figure out how to tell where you were on a 2D plane until very recently, where I was watching like a 12-year-old video that had a concept in it, which basically feels this, and we'll get to that concept in just a sec. But before we do, the one thing you need to just keep in mind is wherever you are on the grid, you're always going to have a singular row turned on, and all the other rows will be turned off. And you're going to have a singular column turned off, and all the other columns are going to be turned on. So the concept is basically just this. It's if I put a redstone torch right here, I can lock on these two lines and turn this one off, because this piece of redstone cannot activate this, but this running into this block will go down here. Same with this running into this block. If we stack it over right here, you turn it on, right? Because let's say like this is row 3 or something, I don't know. And both of these are on. Remember, so we need one row always on, which you have that row right there. And we need one column always off. So, you know what, we're just going to say this column is the one that is off, and the bottom one, or sorry, the bottom one is the one that is off, the top one is on. As you can see right here, boom. The reason that this works is because, again, running through, this repeater right here is locking this redstone, and this piece of redstone right down here. Same with up here, this repeater is locking here and here, but it doesn't matter because this is just locking all three. So the only one that's not really being activated at the moment is this bottom one right here. Same thing if we move it down here. Now it's just the top one. And same thing over here. You need one row on, and you need a singular column off. So here you can see we have top, right, left. It depends on which way you're looking at it. Side. We're going to say side. And you'll notice the redstone over here is placed right here instead of a repeater here to ensure that you have your rows separated. Basically, in the actual thing, you just have a single redstone dot like running down a diagonal shape, sort of like so. You can see like the redstone is in a diagonal line here, and that each one of these rows basically locks a separate column or allows a separate column to be unlocked. But looking at it here, depending on which row you have, that one's on. If you come over here, now this one's off, so therefore this one's going to be off. And then if we swap rows, you can see now it's bottom center, because it's locking everything but the center rows here. And basically what the actual game is just supersizing that on a 6x6 grid. And then you get what I dub the redstone brick. Now just for going a little deeper here, if we just throw a piece of redstone on like that gray one right there, that comes down to this line. So this one represents that very specific gray block, or I guess instead of 4 blocks, gray spot. And what that does is it extends this piston. If you know, comparators can take outputs through a block. So this gray has a sign next to it that says 11. The reason I want that is because I want a similar... That is the signal strength I want to get from this repeater. So it's on subtract mode, so that's going to be 15. And then in here is enough items to make this comparator give off a signal strength of 4. So 15 minus 4 is going to be 11. And that's going to send that through here down into these red coders. And that red coder is going to activate our gray right here. Basically every single color has its own like number. Like, yeah, a different gray one here is also 11. Just all the grays are 11. And what that basically does is when it's sent through this red code, it's sent into here. And I'm not sure if I'd call this a piston feed tape, but it's, you know, the closest I've ever gotten to actually using one. So for example, let's say here, oh, you're supposed to be on gray, right? So if we just break that, now we have the gray light lit up. What that's going to do is it's going to activate this line right here, which is going to push up this piston, which will push up all the gray glass. And as you can see, it'll also push up a gray wool so that these repeaters can go through here, activate this, and then come all the way up here and keep this torch off. Basically, in the redstone, the entire point of the game is just making sure that this torch stays off. Most of the time, the game over here will be doing it, but in the few times where you need to do it, this is how you do it. And then I'm just going to go push these back down real quick. Boom. And now it doesn't go through anymore. And that's basically how you tell where you are and what color you need to be sorted into. Now over to the leveling. First we're going to come down here. Basically what this is doing is we've got a monostable circuit right here. You press this, it fires once. Boom. And you can start hearing those push. I think this is like a mumbo jumbo design, I think. Pretty sure. We're going to go ahead and say 90% certain. Also, you can actually just ignore all of that. But basically what this is doing is every single time you hit this button, oh, come on. There we go. Boom. It keeps moving it over, keeps increasing the signal strength of this, which goes into another subtractor, which basically determines what pieces of redstone are active. So if you press it again, you'll see that redstone's going to turn off. Boom. And then it starts sending it all the way down. Boom. And you can probably tell how, like, the note blocks are all variable. They're all independently linked to each one of these through observers, looking at the repeaters. Basically, every single line, these repeaters are just... they lose 10 milliseconds, like, per note block. So you can basically split this up into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections of 5 repeaters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's another section. Each one always loses a single redstone tick between. Sorry, I am jumping around. Sorry if I'm nauseating you. So we got 4 here, then 3 here, then 2 in there, and then 1, and then 3, 2, 1. And that's basically being replicated along each of these. So that's why, you know, between each level, you're losing about 30 milliseconds. Wait, is a redstone tick 10 milliseconds? Or is it 20? I think it's 10. We're going to say it's 10 milliseconds for a redstone tick. Which, you know, in the early levels does not really mean a whole lot, but when level 19, you're only given a total of 60 milliseconds to complete it. Dropping down to 30 is quite a jump from, you know, having 10 seconds to, or not that much, 5 seconds to like 4 seconds and 70 milliseconds. But anyway, once this over here basically reaches all the way to the end, it's basically going to turn... yeah, this is the last level on, like, this half. So once this turns off, it's going to turn this torch on, which is going to activate this piece of redstone dust. I'm pretty sure it needs to be a basic one. And what that basically does in the actual one is it locks this monostable and then starts using this one. And that's how we have 20 levels. Now let's actually go over to the actual thing. Looking at it here, you can see, you know, same setup. I'm actually going to run it through failure real quick. So what you'll see is this redstone line going, and if you remember in the last video I said once the pistons extend, you have to stand still, and then once they retract, you can get off. And that's because I have these little pulse extenders here. I think it's like a Crafty Masterman design. But yeah, and here's the reset cycle. It basically has to cycle... yeah, it literally has to cycle each item throughout the entire system to get it back to the start. Which I think you saw was starting to, like, fire off all these repeaters and everything was going absolutely insane. So let's take a bit of a closer look at that. So once, yep, that's going to start coming through for level 1. So the reset, how long it actually takes this game to reset is variable. It really depends on how long it takes for everything to just cycle through. Because once everything starts flashing, once this pulse extender finally turns off, then it'll give a little power, then it'll power this torch, which will basically give the signal that we're all good to go. Boom, right there. So as long as this repeater just keeps flashing at the pulse extender here, the reset cycle is going to continue. So I think actually the later in you fail, the shorter the reset time is going to be, because it doesn't have to cycle as much. Yeah, so if you're wondering what, like, these observers here, and there's also one over there, this is the detector to make it to level 5 or level 10 that you can just skip over to those levels. When during the reset cycle, I just locked the repeater over there, so it doesn't actually affect it at all. But now let's quickly, hang on. I just want to wait for this to turn off before I start affecting things. There we go. So let's say we're like moving over to level 5 here, which we'll do right there. You'll notice the monostable circuit no longer has access to these 5 hoppers right here. Signal starts right here. Though it does have to go through a full reset. But yeah, point is boom, 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 boom. Goes right there. Another thing you'll maybe also notice is over here I've lowered the target blocks so that when it does that initial cycle of running through here to get to here, it does not start firing these repeaters again, because then the reset process would take forever, and honestly, I can't remember if it was an infinite loop. But yeah, it basically switches over to this monostable circuit. Now we're just using this one. Same with level 10. Level 10 doesn't actually really switch over to another monostable circuit. It just switches over to the second half. It effectively switches over to this one. Reason being is, if you remember earlier, right, when this is off, it turns this torch on, which basically comes over here, locks that monostable, comes even further over here, locks this one, unlocks this one. That's basically all it does, is level 10 just gets us to the second half. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I can't really think of anything else I want to go over. I mean, obviously, you know, there's a lot more to it, but this is like the meat of the design. I guess one other thing we can go over is just these clocks to get it to cycle all the way through once you fail. It basically sends a clock through to just keep repeatedly turning on the monsters here. And then once it hits this one right here, it'll turn on this comparator, which will turn off the clock, and that's pretty much just how you stop it. So yeah, the system just basically runs infinitely until it's told not to by the reset system. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Again, world download will be in the description of both videos. If you want to take a look and try to make sense of the rest of my spaghetti redstone, you can certainly tell that I built the coordinate locator first, because it's when I actually cared about compacting the redstone, and then here I just gave up. So yeah, that's pretty much it.